What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Second Avenue Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Linares.
I'm your other host, Elijah Venencia. This has been such a short time without us recording. It's been literally less than 24 hours, and we are back at it. We're back on the grind. Um,
Grinders.
this is going to be one of our short little episodes. So, I hope everyone's having a great week. We obviously aren't going to be able to talk about new releases or anything like that quite yet. We'll get caught up eventually, but we're gonna try and introduce something new here. You want to get into a little bit?
Yeah, so former guest of the podcast, my sister, Elijah's cousin, Lauren, she is actually in a book club, and that gave me the idea we should do like an album of the month club where we all, whoever's interested, listens to the same album, and then we get everybody on an episode that wants to be a part of it, and we just talk about the album. We talk about, the artist. We talk about favorite songs, favorite moments, anything else in the backstory, the story of the album, whatever it may be. Depends on the album, really, what we talk about. But I think it should be a cool way to all learn about new music together, hear other people's thoughts on the music, and just get everybody involved with the podcast, make it a real community type vibe. I think, we could do a Discord, we could do an Instagram group messages, we could do a lot of different things to like coordinate, but we could even meet in person and talk about it rather than on Zoom. Like we definitely got options. I think we could make it really cool. I think there's a lot of different ways we could decide what albums we're going to do. It could be a new release that's really hyped up, like, a Utopia, or it could be a super classic album like a Illmatic, like something by Biggie or Tupac, or, like a Mad Villainy. But I think some of those albums, people have heard, some haven't. So I think it'd just be a cool way to just explore music together.
Yeah, no, obviously that's just obviously a great idea, of course. Kind of comparing it to the book club is perfect. And it gives like everybody a shot. Maybe it's somebody's favorite album out there, or the other person's the first time they've heard it. So, it just creates such a great opportunity for, music just to be discussed. And that's what the point of this podcast is, to talk
Hmm.
music. Just chop it up basically. So, stay tuned for that. Of course, this is like super exciting for the both of us, especially like bringing in more people. So, um, I'm ready to get this started. We're still deciding on that first album, so we'll see what happens, of course, and I obviously keep you guys updated.
Yep. Stay tuned to the Instagram at Second Avenue Pod. We'll be giving any updates on that. We'll probably try to get kicked off. Like we've mentioned, that we're kind of in a weird spot here with these episodes, pre-recording. They're going to be shorter episodes. So maybe not the first or second episode back, but shortly after, like maybe the end of August, we kick this thing off and get it going. But maybe, that's when the episode comes out. So maybe we announce the album early August so everybody has time to listen. And then we record it sometime, second, third week August. So we'll keep you guys posted, but it definitely be cool. I like your point about, it's somebody's favorite and maybe somebody hasn't even heard it. I like that a lot because I think so much about the dialogue about these albums will be, hearing other people's thoughts. And if you are, new to the artist, to the genre, if we're doing something different, even like hearing from somebody that really loves it and is super like knowledgeable about it, I think that could make you appreciate it even more. Like if we're going back to some of these like classic, if we did like a classic rock album or like, something like that, like a Beatles album, like a, you know, Pink Floyd, something random like that, there might be somebody out there that knows all their albums, knows, oh, this is where they started doing this. They lost a band member here. And I'm like, oh, okay, like that. I appreciate that so much
Yeah,
more now because you explained that to me. And I think it'd be really cool. So definitely stay tuned and we'll give some updates here in the next couple of weeks, but definitely excited to kick it off.
definitely. And I'm super excited for this episode that we have going this week. We're just going three albums we just have in rotation, or kind of just going a little more in depth. I chose just three albums that I've like out of 3 years of high school, my freshman year, my sophomore year, my junior year, and they've just consistently stayed in my rotation. Like there's albums that'll never leave. I'm sure everybody has those albums from specific points in time. So I'm ready to get into those. You want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'm going to kick us off here with one that is probably the most random one we're going to talk about today, and that is Running by Cafune. They're an indie duo. I've been a fan of them for a minute. I saw them at Summerfest in Milwaukee last weekend, and so it felt right. Before that, I've been listening for a minute. I know that you're probably not too familiar with them, so I'll wanted to get this one out of the way so we just talk about it quickly and then we can, dive in a little bit deeper with the ones we both listened to. But I had to show them some love. I don't know if you ever seen this video, but there's a video of Pharrell and he goes to NYU to a music class and he's listening to the students' music. The biggest moment from that is Maggie Rogers. I don't know if you know Maggie Rogers.
I do not know.
Okay, Maggie Rogers is dope. She is, kind of like a folk type singer songwriter artist,
Mhm.
very talented, super nice. And she is in that class and she's playing her music for Pharrell. She plays her song Alaska, which is to this day my favorite song by her. And that was the first time I ever heard it. And Pharrell, when he's going through all these other people, he's got notes, like, oh, I'd layer the vocals here,
Mhm.
the snares there, whatever. When he goes to Maggie Rogers, his face is just so blown away. And he just says, wow. He's like, I have no notes for that. And if you're an artist, that's like the craziest compliment you could ever
Yeah.
get from Pharrell Williams. But he says basically he has no notes because what she's doing is singular. There's nobody else that's doing it like her.
Mhm.
And that's just so cool. And to this day, I love that song, love that specific part of the video. But when I first saw that, I was like, oh, let's see these other people. I watched the full video. It's maybe, like 30 minutes or whatever. Before that, I'd just seen the 4 minute clip of Maggie Rogers. And one of the other people that got to play their music for Pharrell was Cafune, this duo. And I was like, oh, I like this. Like, this is cool.
Uh-huh.
And then that was that. I just heard that one song that they played for Pharrell, and I was like, okay, that's cool. That's whatever. There's another person that plays music too. Didn't think, much about it. Then all of a sudden on TikTok, I heard this song and I was like, oh, this is so good. I was like, I like this song a lot. Like TikTok songs for me are real hit and miss. Like I'm either like, especially the ones you're hearing a lot, like I'm either like, oh, I really like this, or like I'm sick of this. I never want to hear it again. And especially I would never like listen to it on my own time. Like, it's a cool TikTok song, but it's not like a music I'm gonna listen to. But I heard this song one day and I was like, what is this? Like I gotta know. And it was a song Tech It by Cafune. And great song. You would probably know it if you heard it, but it's just so good. I love that song. So I listened to their album Running. I don't know if it's out, maybe an EP, whatever. It's pretty short, but that was that. I've been listening to music for a minute now. Had the chance to go see them at Summerfest, and they killed it. And I'm also going to see them at Lollapalooza when I'm going on Friday. So I'm like a fan now. I bought a T-shirt.
Uh-huh.
Like we're in, so now I get to be in the crowd. Yeah. So yeah, I only knew like maybe 5 songs pretty well, like when I saw them in Milwaukee. So now I've done a few more listens and I'm like ready to be like a real fan
Yeah, like
at Lala.
this is gonna be the podcast soon. I mean, it's just gonna take over eventually.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I for sure need to give the album a listen. It's a couple weeks in a row for that way you brought it up, or 2 days in a row for me, I guess.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, I personally haven't given a listen or anything yet. So I mean, I feel like this is going to provide just such a great opportunity for you guys. Just, I mean, go into our what we listen to daily, nearly, or I mean, I'd say I bump one of these albums at least a week or once a week. So,
for
but for
sure.
my first pick, this is just screaming freshman year here. This is we got Bobby Tarantino by Logic. This is like the summer of my
Mm,
freshman year. And wow, like this is so, in eighth grade, I had started listening like Under Pressure Logic a little bit more. And then this like just confirmed my fandom. Like, okay, this guy's like one of my favorite artists right now. I mean, there are just so many like just tracks that bring me back. We got Flexecution, The Jam, Slave 1 and 2, Wrist, 44 Bars. 44 Bars is probably my favorite Logic song.
not mad at that.
Um, and this is just such a great project. I remember me and BG used to bump this back in the day. Me and Anthony, like I just got so many moments with different friends of this album, and it's just one that'll just never leave the rotation for me personally.
No, this one's fire. I will be honest, it has left the rotation for me, but when I do go back to a song every now and then,
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, this is
Uh,
nice. Like I remember one night we were riding around probably a couple months ago and we listened to Slave 2 and I was like, "Oh, this
mhm.
song is so good." And I forgot about it. I haven't listened to it in forever, months, if not years. So I was like, "All right, this is good." And I listened to it another time like on my own since then. I loved Logic. Like back in the day,
Yeah,
I
that
still
was
got
like
love for Logic, but not like I did once.
that felt like at like the peak of his popularity, like around here, especially like everybody, not everybody, but like if you like fucked with music, you were bumping Logic, you were bumping this. So
Oh yeah. I feel like, yeah, that Logic was one of those people. He was at first, an if you know, you know artist in the
mhm,
mixtape, into Under Pressure days, and then even kind of into the Incredible True Story.
mhm.
And then he was just everywhere. Obviously, 1-800, that just
Yeah.
blew him up into a different stratosphere. But that's a little bit after this era. Man, he had the hits, though. He had just such great technical skill that he just showcased throughout all these. He was a good storyteller, good wordplay most of the time. So, yeah, I got love for Logic
Um,
always.
every time I see the Devin's Flex hat, I always think of this album, of course, with Flexecution. So
That's fire. I bought him that hat when I went to see Logic. Have you seen Logic in concert?
I have never had the opportunity, never been at a rolling, ever really at any festival or anything I've been at. So I don't know if it's so. I don't think I'd go individually, but if you just at one of these festivals or something, I think I'd have to see him. So
Hmm. I've seen Logic twice, actually. I saw him in Indianapolis on his own tour. It was
mhm,
him and Joey Badass, though, and I like Joey a lot, obviously, too. So I
mhm.
was like, okay, that's a pretty good one. And that was right after everybody. So he was still like pretty frequent
Yeah.
in the rotation, very top of his game. And then Joey, that was right after All American Badass. So he was killing it too, of course. And yeah, that was a great show. And then I saw him the next summer at Lollapalooza. I didn't go for him. I went for the
Mhm.
weekend, but he was like the person right before the weekend. So Logic the weekend back to back, that's a pretty good
That's a good.
duo right
Yeah,
there.
at that time especially.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like I'm less into him now. Like I would definitely not go see just a Logic tour now. Kind of like you went to see him individually.
Hmm.
Um, so like I mean at that time I was fucking 15 years old. So it's like you're not really going out to concerts or anything before you can
Yeah,
drive or any of your friends can drive. So
that is
kind of
true.
took the L at that point in my life. But I mean, what can you do? You know.
Man, I have a random memory of like being in the weight room the summer after I was done with high school and I was working at the high school. I remember I would like lift in the weight room, and I think I was
Mhm,
in there one day when you were in there like lifting for football or something,
mhm.
or you and Anthony or something, and you guys were talking about, oh, we should go see Logic. And I don't know why I'm remembering that, but I do remember that because you guys were like the young
Uh,
bulls. You guys were probably like 16, 17, whatever.
yeah, and what 2016 probably that was. I would have been 14 turning 15. So
Mm, should have made it happen, but whatever. Maybe someday.
yeah, the Logic like retirement tour we'll go on.
Yeah, Logic Eras tour, he'd be in his bag. I'm sure he's got quite a few eras left, though. We'll see. Obviously, he's had his retirement, but I don't think that's going to last.
Yeah.
Obviously, it hasn't even. So we'll see if one day it actually does. Let's get to my next album here. I picked Pinata by Freddie Gibbs and Madlib. Freddie Gibbs is sneakily one of my like top five all time listen to artists on Spotify. Like, I think he might be number
Sheesh.
three, which is like
Oh,
sneaky because
mhm.
obviously I've been like a weekend guy forever. So he's like number one, I think. And I can't remember who's number two, but I think Freddie's number three or four. Freddie is up there. And I don't even like realize how much I listen to Freddie, but I've been listening to him just for, so many years, so consistently that it just adds up, I guess. But Pinata, that was probably the first album I heard from Freddie Gibbs. I wasn't listening like right when it dropped, but I remember this is one where I feel like when I was just out of high school or even still in high school, I was like, if it's underground, like there's a reason it's underground. Like it's not popular.
Yeah.
Like I'm only listening to Drake,
Yeah.
I'll listen to Kendrick, J. Cole. Like they're big for a reason. I'm listening to
Mhm.
them. And so like I wouldn't even really give some of these albums a chance, like the Mad Villainies, the Pinatas, like these like to me at least, classic rap albums, like essential rap
Mhm.
albums, at least of the underground or whatever you say. They don't even feel like underground anymore. Mad Villainy is like huge, but
Yeah.
at a point, I would say it probably was, and maybe that was even before I was listening to it. At least now, though, for sure. But Pinata was one of the ones where I was like, I'm not gonna listen to Freddie Gibbs. Like, who's
Mhm.
Freddie Gibbs? But then I finally gave it that a listen. I, would hear a song every once in a while. My boy Chalky would always be playing, and I'd be like, okay, this is pretty good. And that was right around the time he was collecting vinyls. And I know he had Pinata on vinyl. I know he had Mad Villainy. We're not talking about Mad Villainy though. We're
No.
sticking to Pinata here. But I was like, okay, I think maybe he finally played it on vinyl in front of me, and I was like, okay, this is good. I like
Legit.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like okay, I see it now. But to me, it's just such a great album. It's Freddie's best project for sure. You got crazy features on it. You got Mac Miller, you got Earl Sweatshirt, you got Raekwon, you got Danny Brown, and there's just some of Freddie's best songs on here. Shitsville is always going to be on my workout playlist, but you got Robes with Earl and Dama Genesis. That one's crazy. High with Danny Brown, Heralds. I saw somebody on Twitter one time say, if you had to play a Freddie Gibbs song like with a girl in the car, what song are you gonna play? And people are like, oh, there's not one, there's not one. Somebody said
Yeah.
Heralds, and I was like, okay, I could see that. There's so many good songs, though. Obviously, to me, the two standouts are always going to be Deeper and Thuggin. I mean, those are two of like probably, I'd throw them in my top 100, no question, maybe top 50 favorite rap songs of all time. Like, those are such great tracks. I heard somebody once say that Deeper by Freddie Gibbs is like a Drake song. It has the vibe of a Drake song, the storytelling, but it has that Freddie Gibbs touch on it. Like it doesn't sound anything like a Drake
Yeah.
song, but the underlying tone could be maybe Drake-esque because he's just talking about deeper issues, like all this stuff in his life. And it's just such a great perspective from Freddie because we're used to that thug and we're used to the coke bars, we're used to all this, and then we get that deeper, we get that more introspective Freddie Gibbs. Oh, that's to me one of the best songs. So if you're gonna take anything away from that whole spiel, listen to Deeper by Freddie Gibbs.
Freddie Gibbs is one of the artists that I believe should be a lot bigger than they are. I mean, not necessarily, this massive A-list star, but they should be, he should be at, a level where Mac Miller was at. I'd say him and Vince Staples are similar levels, I guess, in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
popularity amongst, others. Obviously, music's subjective. It doesn't really matter what everybody else thinks or, um, but it just feels like he's got a good like social media personality and everything like Vince Staples. That's
Mm-hmm.
another common trait there. And I just feel like he should be bigger than he is. I was going over Spotify monthly listeners. He's only at 3.5 million. I feel like he could easily double that comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, but I don't know. Freddie Gibbs just needs more love in rap. Me and Brennan were just talking about Vince Staples, like for the same reason, like he should be just a lot more known to the common rap listener. But hey, he still drops great music and everything, of course. So
Always. Definitely one of the most consistent to me, one of the most talented to me. And I think, he was starting to get his shine in the past couple of years. Alfredo, I mean, Grammy
yeah,
nomination, that's fire for him. And he's always been just coming through with great music. And I think, you know, consistently doing that gets you to great places, and it's gotten him to a great place. He may not be like an A-list rapper, but he's significantly bigger than he was, in 2016 when I first heard about Freddie Gibbs or whatever year that was. So, yeah, shout out to him, consistent growth over the years, and I think he's definitely got his respect from other rappers and like
yeah,
super hardcore listeners, and
mhm,
that's all you can really ask for. I think at the end of the day, I think his sound's not mainstream. Like I
mhm,
couldn't hear Freddie
yeah,
Gibbs on the radio, but at the same time, he does have some songs where I'm like, okay, this like has hit potential. Like the one to me, I always go back to that. Like this should be a bigger hit than it is Four Things with Big Sean. Like
yeah.
the first time I heard this, I was like, oh, this is gonna be a big song. And then my random memory of it is that was back when I like would watch the Nelk Boys, and I was like, oh, the Nelk Boys, they put that
Elk.
in no full send, baby, quit being a half sender. They put that in one of their videos, and I was like, Freddie Gibbs in a Nelk video. I was
Yeah,
like,
that's
who's picking the
crazy.
music?
Mhm.
But no, that just shows that it should have been more mainstream than it was. And I think it's one that like if you play on the aux at like a party or
Mhm.
something, like it would definitely pass the vibe test. There's some that you can't play thug and that's gonna scare the host for sure.
Yeah,
But you could play four things.
I love
So
that.
Freddie's got variety.
I love that comparison for like underground artists now, or kind of that just that whole scene is don't scare the scaring the hose
Uh-huh.
or whatever now. So, shout out Danny Brown and JPEG Mafia for just that perfect album title. So,
Oh yeah.
moving on to my second pick here. This is like I remember I was lifting in the weight room, and this is my introduction to Lil Peep. One of my top three artists comfortably. Um, Ben Struck was playing, so then after that I
Mm,
just took off into this Lil Peep just train, I guess, and this was probably early 2018, so it was a few months after he had passed and dropped "Come Over When You're Sober" Part One. And I mean, this album will never leave my rotation. This may be my favorite album ever.
mm.
Um, Ben Struck, of course, just a banger. I feel like that's one you'll play at a party or play at a function, but then there's also just the headphone music. I feel like this is what all these tracks have done for me. You know, like Save That Shit, Awful Thing, you said, and it's only 7 songs, which I like. Me and Chalky were talking over the weekend. We are like, how much more enjoyable it is to just have a shorter album, or you know, just like the albums nowadays are
Hmm.
just getting way entirely too long. It ruins the album. But what like really solidified this pick for me, and I was going through my music and thinking, what do I want to choose? Problems came on shuffle today, and this is why I don't do really playlists or anything like that. I just shuffle all my like songs, and Problems came on, and I was okay. I was like, I need to bring this in, and I was like, I'll kind
Yeah.
of go in this direction of bringing a lot of the albums I was listening to in high school. So, um, and I feel like at the time, I was bumping this in front of my friends or whatever, and it was kind of didn't it just wasn't the right vibe, I guess, to play in like a car, like cruising around or whatever. But after Star Shopping dropped, I felt like Lil Peep just took off
Ooh.
and or came to streaming services. It took like kind of took over like that emo rap sound really just ascended at our school. So that was just a huge
Hmm.
W. So
Yeah. Shout out to Lil Peep, a legend. He's obviously such a game changer for the rap industry, I guess. And he's just should have been a star. He was a star basically, but he if he would have more time, he could have been so much bigger. So yeah, shout out to Lil Peep always. I remember the way I got on Lil Peep was Cuff Boys, the YouTube channel. He would play the music for his mom, and he did mom reacts to Lil Peep. I think he did um I want to say Save That Shit in Ben's Truck, if I had to guess.
yeah, I
Or
remember
no,
Ben's
Beamer Boy. Beamer Boy for sure was in
yeah.
there. But I was like, oh, this is the first time I heard Lil Peep. I just had seen his videos. I didn't know who Lil Peep was, so I just watched it. That I feel like that was how I learned about so many different artists, was just watching random YouTubers that I enjoyed their content talk about people who they liked. And that's how I found out about Lil Peep. And I started listening to his music, and I loved Come Over When You're Sober. Like, man, awful things. Better off dying. You said there's just so many great
It
songs on that.
just
It is
yeah.
so short, but I think we talked about every song at this point, but they're all great. I mean, yeah, Peep,
It's
legend.
yeah, a 24-minute album. Like, and just literally like I don't think I could pick, a favorite song off there. Like they're just like all like equally matched and everything. So I mean just 24 minutes of just phenomenal music for me. So
Hmm. I will end by saying I think I would probably still take Hellboy over it though, but I love Come On You're Sober.
I yeah, I don't know. It's so hard for me to like choose one. I remember like I guess parts or Come Over When You're Sober part two, because that's like up at night, like listening to it for the first time. That's the first experience I ever had with a new Little Peep project. So I gotta go with that for me. So
Okay, I respect that. My last album I'm going to show some love to this week is Call Me If You Get Lost by Tyler the Creator. This to me is one of the best rap albums of the 2020s so far. Maybe number one. We'd have to talk, but it could be number one. I think I have to really sit and think about what else we got. But off the top, it might be number one. And I had to show it some love because I'm going on vacation. That's the reason we're pre-recording these. And this is the first time I'm ever gonna like go somewhere like a beach after this album's been out, and I just cannot wait to experience this album with water, with sand, with just a new scenery. Oh my god, it's gonna be such a vibe. This is the
it,
perfect like travel album, and I can't even wait.
yeah, no, like I'm not the biggest Tyler fan. I'll always admit that, or haven't got too into him yet. I guess possibly, but this just feels like just such a great travel album. Or just you're in vacation mode. Call Me If You Get Lost. Like I don't think there's a better album that's released within the past 5 years that you can play. So
No, it's got to be number one to me. Call Me If You Get Lost is such a great project. When Igor first came out, I was like, wow, this is like Tyler's magnum opus, and it still might be, but I didn't think anything was ever going to come close. And then Call Me If You Get Lost dropped, and I was like, ooh, this is close. Like I probably listen to Call Me If You Get Lost more. It is potentially because it's newer and because I've heard Igor so many times, but it is just great. No matter what bar you're judging it against, it is just a great project. It's another, kind of shorter project, 52 minutes, nothing crazy long. I think anything under an hour is like, short. I think you get around 50 minutes or shorter. I think that's pretty short. And there's two just super long tracks with Sweet. I Thought You Wanted to Dance and Wilshire. So it really, besides those, is like 30 something minutes, really. So most of the other tracks are short. You get a couple skits, but it's just such a great project. Hot Wind Blows, that'll like never leave the rotation. In the summer, the whole project is really never leaving the rotation. Sweet, I thought you wanted to dance. It's a long track, but I'm bumping that one pretty often. Like all in all, it's such a great project. You got songs you can play on the aux, you got songs you can listen to in your headphones, song for every setting, but all with that underlying tone of summer, of travel, and I cannot wait to listen to it. It's definitely going to be like the last album I listened to in the car on the way there. Like I'm gonna have it
Mhm.
planned out. My playlist is gonna be, how many ever hours, and this is gonna be that last hour, and it's gonna be such a vibe.
Are you ready to call it a classic yet?
Not yet, not yet, but
I
I
think
think it
yeah,
has all those
I think
things
it
where
just
it has the makings of a classic. Like it obviously has a great music, but I think it has so many just great moments attached to it. Obviously, I think the estate sale helps boost it a little bit more even,
mhm.
and just like the aesthetic of it, it's such like an important piece to Tyler's career. And I think Tyler's a legend. You know what I mean? Like to me, Tyler is one of the best rappers of this generation. So I think that alone is going to give it that classic status one day, but I think that's a conversation for a couple years from now.
Yeah, no, it isn't. I was going to argue with you that it is entirely too soon for that, but I think it does have all the makings. Obviously, it's not something I'm bumping all the time or anything like that, but I will admit it does have all the makings of a classic.
Hmm.
Moving on to my last track here. This one like brings back junior year football season so much for me. So it was little baby was blowing up that summer. We had Yes Indeed, and then I remember like very very vividly like Drip Too Hard playing. Little off topic here because this is not a little baby project we got, but we have Beer Bongs and Bentleys by Post Malone. I remember it just so vividly. Like we would just have tracks like that the football team would all listen to together, in the locker room or on the bus or whatever. Um, and Rockstar, the first time I heard it, oh my, like this is just a song that just I like instantly fell in love with. That 21 Savage feature is just insane to me.
Hmm.
I love this out. I love this album in Stony. It felt like those albums at the time were just like some of my favorites. Me and all my friends, I mean, just were always banging Post Malone. I remember we'd always like go to little parties in the country or whatever, like that winter, and it was just always in Cameron Capilano's car, just listening to Beer Bongs
Oh,
and Bentleys, or we'd be chilling at Austin's house in the basement, listening to Beer Bongs and Bentleys, Stony. Um,
fire.
but yeah, I mean, there's just so many great picks for me here. Uh, Rockstar, of course, Zach and Codeine. That was just such a good one at the time. 92 Explorer, I love that. And then even, now I still always bang like Over Now. Paranoid. Paranoid might be my favorite Post Malone song. So it's just, I feel like Post Malone hasn't gotten too much mention on the podcast because he's kind of not someone I listen to too much anymore, but this one is just always going to be a classic to me. So,
Yeah, anytime we talk about Post Malone, I'm always gonna go back to the episode when we were doing 20 questions and you gave me him, and I just don't even think about Post Malone when we're talking about rappers. So
uh,
that was a tough one. Um, but yeah, I mean, I definitely listen to Post Malone every now and then back in the day, especially like I loved White Iverson. I think people thought it was a joke, some people, but I was like, I love White Iverson. Like then I
yeah.
was like, this song is crazy. And from there he had some good songs. And then Rockstar came out. Rockstar, it's one of those songs that's huge, but I think deservingly so. I never really got tired of Rockstar. Even still, like if I heard Rockstar, I'd be like, okay, I'm not really going my way for Post Malone, but it's a good track. And I think there's definitely some other good ones here that, all have moments. Psycho, Better Now. Those are hits. Post Malone's a star. Like this is the album that really made him that star. And shout out to him, I guess, but I'm not bumping it like that. But when I hear them, they're fine.
Yeah, it's really crazy like how big Post Malone actually is. Like the Diamond collection, that was just like such a big flex.
Hmm.
And like he just Rockstar is like one of the most played songs on Spotify ever. Congratulations as well. That song is massive. I Fall Apart. I mean, he's just got like a lot of hits. Like, um, so I mean, he's done his thing, of course. So I mean, shout out Post Malone.
Shout out to Post Malone. Never thought we were gonna get into him like this on the pod, but here we are. Look at us. But yeah, I and really enjoy talking about these albums. Some albums that we have talked about, some that we haven't talked about, but it was just cool to get into them, kind of set the tone a little bit. This is like a mini version of what that album of the month club could be. So we'll definitely, be back with some updates on that. And hopefully you guys enjoyed, this little shorter episode. Apologies again. But it is summer, we're out here outside for real. So some of these episodes are gonna be a little bit shorter for the next couple of weeks. But we're gonna be here. And that's the best we can do at this point. So we're just giving you what we got. Hope you guys enjoy it. And we'll be back next week with another, a little bit shorter episode. But hopefully you guys enjoy them, and yeah, then we'll be back for good in a couple weeks.
All right, we'll see you guys next week with another episode. Peace.